Leonid Kravcuk's tenure as Ukraine's first president, spanning from December 5, 1991 to July 19, 1994, was a formative period for Ukraine's foreign relations, particularly with Russia, its largest neighbor and former Soviet hegemon. This analysis delves into the multifaceted dynamics of their relationship, highlighting key events, policies, and their implications, drawing from historical records and contemporary analyses. Kravcuk, a former high-ranking Communist Party official, played a crucial role in Ukraine's transition to independence following the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991. His leadership was instrumental in the Belozhesk Accords, signed with Russian President Boris Yeltsin and Belarusian leader Stanislav Shushkevich on December 8, 1991, formally dissolving the USSR. This act marked the beginning of Ukraine's sovereign statehood, setting the stage for a complex relationship with Russia, characterized by both cooperation and tension. One of the most significant aspects of Ukraine-Russia relations during Kravcuk's presidency was the handling of Ukraine's nuclear arsenal, inherited from the Soviet Union. At independence, Ukraine possessed the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal, including approximately 1,900 strategic warheads. Kravcuk engaged in negotiations to transfer these weapons to Russia, culminating in the trilateral statement signed on January 14, 1994, in Moscow, involving Yeltsin and U.S. President Bill Clinton. This agreement committed Ukraine to eliminate 176 intercontinental ballistic missiles and 1,500 nuclear warheads, receiving security assurances and compensation for highly enriched uranium. The process began with the Lisbon Protocol in 1992, and by June 1, 1996, the last nuclear warheads were transferred to Russia, with the final SS-24 missile silo eliminated by 2001. This denuclearization was seen as a cooperative move, but later criticized, especially post-2014, for leaving Ukraine vulnerable without robust security guarantees, as evidenced by Russia's annexation of Crimea. Another focal point was the status of the Black Sea Fleet and Crimea. In May 1992, Russia's Supreme Soviet declared the 1954 transfer of Crimea to Ukraine illegal, a move Ukraine opposed. This led to disputes over the division of the Soviet Navy's Black Sea Fleet, with its presence in Sevastopol becoming a contentious issue. The resolution was deferred, with a 20-year lease agreement not reached until 1997, 3 years after Kravcuk left office. These tensions highlighted the geopolitical friction, with Russia asserting historical claims and Ukraine seeking to consolidate its territorial integrity. Economically, Ukraine was heavily reliant on Russia, particularly for natural gas. This dependency influenced bilateral relations, with shady agreements on gas deliveries becoming a major point of contention. Companies like UESU, led by figures like Yulia Tymoshenko, acted as intermediaries for Russian gas transit to Western Europe, reflecting the deep economic entanglement between the countries. This interdependence was a double-edged sword, providing economic leverage to Russia while also exposing Ukraine to complex energy politics and potential vulnerabilities. Kravcuk's foreign policy leaned towards the West, departing from traditional ties with Russia. He developed strong relations with the European Union, signing a comprehensive cooperation accord. He expressed support for NATO membership in 1994, stating it as Ukraine's best security guarantee. This pro-European stance was a source of tension with Russia. Kravcuk's presidency was marked by severe economic difficulties, with Ukraine's GDP shrinking by 40% in less than 3 years, and rising corruption linked to privatization efforts. These domestic issues influenced foreign policy, as economic woes necessitated cooperation with Russia for gas and trade, while simultaneously pushing Kravcuk to seek Western support for political and economic stability. The political tension including the resignation of Prime Minister Leonid Kuchma in 1993, reflected internal pressures that shaped Ukraine's external relations. Kravcuk's interactions with Russian leaders, particularly Yeltsin, were marked by both cooperation and friction. The Massandra summit in September 1993 initially appeared to resolve nuclear and fleet issues, but the deal collapsed, underscoring negotiation challenges. In interviews, Kravcuk noted that Russian leaders were reluctant to recognize Ukrainian independence, with Yeltsin describing Ukraine as a main destabilizing factor due to increasing nationalist pressures. Later, in 2016, Kravcuk recalled that Yeltsin had called the idea of war between Russia and Ukraine crazy, reflecting early hopes for peaceful coexistence between the two nations. Kravcuk's presidency set the tone for future Ukraine-Russia relations, with his decisions on nuclear disarmament and Western orientation having lasting impacts. Post-presidency, he remained active, notably in the Trilateral Contact Group from July 2020 to February 2022, addressing the Donbass conflict, reflecting his continued engagement with Russia-related issues. His legacy is debated, with critics pointing to the nuclear decision as a mistake given later Russian aggression, while supporters note the constraints of a newly independent, economically weak state. In conclusion, Kravcuk's presidency was a balancing act, navigating Ukraine's nascent independence through cooperation on nuclear and economic fronts while asserting sovereignty against Russian pressures, particularly over Crimea and Western alignment. This period laid critical foundations for the geopolitical dynamics observed in subsequent decades.